cold porcelain pressed against her cheek. The stench of disinfectant stung her nose, and the warder's icy grip closed around her mouth as she struggled for breath. The colonel's hand was iron on the back of her head, unyielding, merciless. She kicked against the tiled floor, boots scraping, but his strength outweighed her desperation. Her lungs burned, her pride shattered. And in that moment, drenched and humiliated, she swore that the man who held her under would never forget what came next. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Her name was Sergeant Elena Ramirez. She had fought her way through every barrier the military had stacked against her, rising not with privilege or family ties, but with grit that cut through every doubt cast upon her. To many, she was just another soldier. To a few, she was a thorn in the side of tradition, especially to Colonel Briggs, the man who believed women had no place in the ranks he commanded. The confrontation began in silence, with whispered remarks in the mess hall about Elena's latest commendation. Some admired her, others sneered, but the colonel's jaw tightened that day, and behind his stare simmered something darker than disapproval. He waited until the barracks hallway emptied, when shadows stretched long and the echo of boots faded. Then, without warning, he cornered her, accusing her of undermining discipline, of thinking herself superior. She stood her ground, words measured, but when his fury boiled over, he acted in a way no officer should. His hand clamped down. The world tilted, and in seconds, her dignity was submerged in a toilet bowl. She gasped when he finally released her, coughing, drenched, humiliated. The colonel stepped back, his lips twisted in a cruel sneer, as if daring her to retaliate. But Elena only met his eyes, her face dripping, her body trembling with both fury and control. She would not give him the satisfaction of breaking. Not here, not now. She walked away, each step heavy with the sting of injustice. In the silence of her bunk, later that night, her thoughts churned. Should she report him? Would anyone believe her, or would the system close ranks to protect a man of his stature? Her heart pounded as she stared at the ceiling, the humiliation replaying in an endless loop. And yet, underneath the pain, a new resolve stirred. Days passed, whispers spread, and though she said nothing, the story traveled through unseen channels. A private caught the end of it. A sergeant noticed her shaken state. Rumors grew, but no one dared confront the colonel. He had power, rank, and reputation, a fortress few would challenge. Elena began to train harder than ever, her body a vessel for her rage and determination. Every push-up, every run, every drill became fuel for something greater. Her silence was not weakness, it was strategy. She knew timing was everything. When the base prepared for its most rigorous combat readiness drill, one that tested every platoon with relentless precision, Elena saw her chance. The colonel would be overseeing it. Every eye would be watching, and she intended to show them something they would never forget. The morning of the drill dawned with dust in the air, boots pounding against earth, and the metallic taste of tension settling over the ranks. Soldiers stood ready, their faces glistening with sweat and anticipation. Colonel Briggs loomed at the edge of the field, arms crossed, a figure of authority. His gaze swept the line, dismissive when it reached Elena. The whistle blew. Like a tide breaking against stone, the platoons surged forward. Movements synchronized, rifles raised, voices shouted commands. Elena darted into formation, her body a blur of precision. She scaled obstacles with the speed of a shadow, vaulted walls as if gravity bowed to her, and pushed her team forward with a fire that spread contagious lie. By mid-course, murmurs rippled through the watching crowd. Her squad, once doubted, often overlooked, was pulling ahead, crushing times, moving with the fluid unity of seasoned warriors. Elena's leadership was unmistakable, her presence electric. Colonel Briggs' face darkened. At the rope climb, she surged upward, arms straining, muscles screaming, until she reached the top. For a brief moment, against the rising sun, she stood tall, a figure that commanded not just respect but awe. And below, the murmurs turned into roars. Soldiers cheered, voices uniting in defiance of the silence Briggs had enforced for years. It wasn't just her performance, it was the way she lifted her team, shouting encouragement, pulling one soldier up when his grip faltered, refusing to leave anyone behind. Her strength was not selfish, it was collective. When the final whistle sounded, her platoon had finished first. The field exploded in applause, boots stomping, hands clapping, and all of it happened under the gaze of the man who once shoved her head into a toilet. Briggs' jaw clenched, his authority cracked, not by formal complaint or official reprimand, but by the undeniable truth in front of him. The base had witnessed something more powerful than rank. They had seen leadership. They had seen resilience. They had seen Elena. That night, the barracks hummed with talk. Soldiers replayed every moment, voices alive with admiration. Some said they'd never felt prouder. Others whispered that justice had been served, not in a courtroom, but on the proving ground. And yet, Elena sat quietly on her bunk, her heart heavy with a question that lingered. Should she let this victory stand as her silent retaliation? Or should she step forward, speak out, and risk everything to ensure no one else endured what she had? Her decision came days later, in a hushed office, where she sat across from a tribunal of officers. She told them everything, the humiliation, the abuse of power, the silence she endured, and the strength she found to rise above it. The room fell into a stillness that seemed endless. Then, one by one, the officers nodded. Not just in agreement, but in acknowledgement of the truth they could no longer deny. Colonel Briggs was relieved of his command. When the announcement spread, the base erupted. Some gasped in shock. Others cheered openly. For the first time in years, the air felt lighter, as though justice itself had taken a breath. And Elena, she stood in the center of it all, not with prideful arrogance, but with quiet grace. She had not just defended herself, she had set a precedent. She had carved a path for those who would come after, ensuring they would never feel powerless under the weight of abuse. Because kindness doesn't vanish, it waits. And it finds its way back. The water that once drowned her dignity was replaced by a tide of respect, and the silence that once trapped her was shattered by the roar of voices rising in her defense. If you were moved by Elena's story, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment about what part struck you most, and don't forget to subscribe. Stories like these remind us of something timeless. Strength is not found in cruelty, but in the courage to rise after being pushed down.